Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back to Soul Stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to join our family. Stay with us, because a new love story is about to begin. The Montana sky stretched endless and purple as dusk settled over the Clearwater Ranch, painting shadows across the wooden fences that Cole Harrison had spent 15 years building with his own calloused hands. At 34, he had everything a man could want: 300 acres of prime cattle land, a house his grandfather had built, and the respect of every rancher from here to Billings. Everything except a wife. His mother had died the previous winter, and her final words still haunted him during the quiet nights when the wind howled through the valley. Find yourself a good woman, Cole, a pure woman, someone untouched by the hardness of this world. Someone you can mold into a proper rancher's wife. He had nodded, holding her fragile hand, making promises he intended to keep. Cole believed in tradition. He believed in the way things had always been done. A man worked the land, and a woman kept the home. A man protected, and a woman nurtured. He had seen too many marriages fall apart in town, watched men drink themselves stupid over women who had experience and opinions and independence. No, he wanted someone simple, someone innocent, someone who would look at him with wonder and let him teach her about life. He had even started courting the preacher's daughter, a timid girl of 20 named Lily who blushed whenever he tipped his hat. She was perfect, quiet, modest, and had never been farther than the county line. Their wedding was planned for autumn. But fate, as it often does in the wild territories, had other plans. It happened on a Thursday evening when Cole was riding back from checking on the north pasture. The summer heat had been brutal, and he had stayed out later than intended, making sure the creek was still running strong enough to water his herd. The sun had nearly disappeared behind the mountains when he heard the sounds: scuffling, male voices raised in anger, and something else. A sound that made his blood run cold. A woman screaming, not in fear but in rage. Cole spurred his horse toward the noise, his hand instinctively moving to the revolver at his hip. He crested a small hill overlooking the old Miller Road, and what he saw stopped him dead. 3 men, rough types he recognized as drifters who had been causing trouble in town, had cornered someone against a rocky outcropping. But this was no ordinary victim cowering in terror. A woman, her feet bare and bloodied from running across the harsh ground, was fighting like a wildcat. One man was already on the ground, clutching his face and howling. Another was circling her warily, a knife in his hand, while the third tried to grab her from behind. She was covered in dirt and blood, her dress torn at the shoulder, her dark hair wild around her face. But what struck Cole most were her eyes, fierce, burning, absolutely undefeated. When the man behind her grabbed her arm, she didn't scream. She twisted, bit down on his hand until he released her, then grabbed a rock from the ground and swung it with deadly accuracy at his temple. He dropped like a sack of grain. 2 down. 1 to go. The last man, the one with the knife, lunged forward. The woman was tired. Cole could see it in the way her chest heaved, the slight tremor in her legs. But she didn't run. She picked up a broken branch and held it before her like a sword, her stance low and ready. Cole had seen enough. He fired his revolver into the air, the sound cracking across the valley like thunder. The man with the knife froze, then slowly turned to see a very angry rancher on horseback, with a gun now pointed directly at his chest. "I suggest you collect your friends and get the hell off my land," Cole said, his voice deadly calm. "Next shot won't be aimed at the sky." The man's face twisted with hatred, but he wasn't stupid. He grabbed his groaning companions and dragged them toward their horses tied nearby. Cole kept his gun trained on them until they disappeared over the ridge, their curses fading into the growing darkness. Only then did he turn to look at the woman. She hadn't moved. The branch was still raised, her body still coiled for attack. Even as Cole holstered his weapon and raised his hands to show he meant no harm, She watched him with the wariness of a wounded animal. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly, dismounting slowly. "My name's Cole Harrison. I own the ranch just east of—" "Here, are you all right?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes traveled over him, assessing, calculating. Then slowly she lowered the branch. "I've been better," she said, her voice hoarse. "Thank you for the assist. Though I had the situation under control." Cole almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Had the situation under control. She was outnumbered, unarmed, and barefoot in the wilderness. But looking at the two men she had taken down before he arrived, he found himself believing her. "I'm sure you did," he said carefully. "But you're bleeding, and it's getting dark. My ranch is close. Let me help you." The woman studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw in his face must have satisfied her, because she finally nodded. "I'm Marlena Cross, and I would appreciate some water if you have it." Getting her onto his horse was an ordeal. She was fiercely independent, refusing his hand until her injured feet made it impossible to mount on her own. Even then, she sat stiffly in front of him, her body tense, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. As they rode, Cole couldn't help but notice things about her. The calluses on her hands that spoke of hard work, the scars on her arms, faded but visible, the way she constantly scanned the horizon, never fully relaxing. This was a woman who had known hardship, a woman who had survived things that would break most people. She was nothing like Lily, nothing like the innocent, moldable bride his mother had envious. Ioned for him. When they reached the ranch, Cole helped her inside and set about heating water for her wounds. Marlena sat at his kitchen table, finally allowing exhaustion to show on her face. In the lamplight, he could see she was beautiful, not in the soft, delicate way he had always preferred, but in a striking, powerful way that made something shift in his chest. "Those men," he said, returning with a bowl of warm water and clean cloths. "Who were they?" Marlena was quiet for a moment, watching him kneel before her to tend to her feet. The cuts were deep but clean, and he worked carefully, aware of her scrutiny. "Bounty hunters," she finally said. "Of a sort. My husband, my late husband, was a rich man, a cruel man. He owned a mining operation in Nevada. When he died, his business partners didn't appreciate that he left everything to me instead of them." Cole looked up, surprised. "You're a widow? 3 years now." Her jaw tightened. "Thomas hit me the night before our wedding, and every day after for 11 years. When he finally drank himself to death, I thought I was free. But his partners disagreed. A woman shouldn't own property, they said. A woman shouldn't run a business. They've been trying to take what's mine ever since." The bitterness in her voice was earned. Cole felt something shift in his understanding, old beliefs cracking like ice under spring sun. "So you ran?" he asked. "I fought," she corrected. "For 3 years I fought them in courtrooms and offices. I learned to read contracts, to understand laws, to protect what was mine. But last month, they stopped playing by rules, started sending men to intimidate me, to hurt me. That's when I decided to disappear for a while, make my way to San Francisco where I have allies who can help." She winced as he cleaned a particularly deep cut. "I was doing fine until my horse threw a shoe 2 days ago. Been walking since. Those men must have been tracking me from the beginning." Cole sat back on his heels, looking at this woman with new eyes. She was fierce, she was damaged, she was stubborn and scarred, and nothing like what he had always imagined he wanted. And she was magnificent. "You can stay here," he heard himself say, "until you're healed, until it's safe to travel." Marlena's eyes narrowed. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's the right thing to do. Men always want something," she said flatly. "What do you want?" The question stung, but Cole supposed she had earned her suspicion. "Right now, I want to finish bandaging your feet. Tomorrow I want to make sure no one followed those men here." "Beyond that?" He shrugged. I want to know how a woman learns to fight like you did out there." For the first time, something like a smile flickered across her face. "My grandfather was a bare-knuckle boxer in Ireland. Taught me when I was young. Said every woman should know how to throw a punch. Wise man, he was." She stayed. One night became 2, then 3. Cole gave her his mother's old room and kept a respectful distance, aware that trust would take time. But slowly, carefully, they began to talk. Marlena told him about her childhood on the frontier, about her grandfather's lessons and her grandmother's stories. She told him about the forced marriage to Thomas Cross, arranged by her father for financial reasons, and the years of horror that followed. She told him about learning to be hard, to be cold, to survive. In return, Cole found himself sharing things he had never told anyone. His fear that he wasn't enough to maintain his father's legacy, his loneliness since his mother's death, his plans to marry Lily, spoken now with uncertainty he hadn't felt before. "She sounds sweet," Marlena said one evening as they sat on the porch watching stars emerge. "Innocent, everything I'm not." "She is," Cole agreed, but the words felt hollow in his mouth. A week passed. Marlena's feet healed enough for her to walk, and she insisted on helping around the ranch. Cole watched her mend fences with efficient skill, calm a spooked horse with gentle words, and cook a stew that put his own efforts to shame. She was competent in a way that made his carefully constructed beliefs about women seem foolish. One afternoon, he came home to find her teaching herself to shoot his spare rifle. Her aim already impressive after just an hour of practice. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, watching her reload. "The fighting, the running, you don't have to do it alone." Marlena lowered the rifle, turning to face him. "I've been alone for a long time, Cole. It's what I know. Maybe it's time to learn something new." The air between them had been charged for days, but neither had acknowledged it. Now, standing in the afternoon sunlight, Cole felt the full weight of what he was feeling. This woman, this scarred, fierce, experienced woman, made him feel more alive than anyone he had ever known. "What about Lily?" Marlena asked quietly. Cole took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about that, about what I thought I wanted, about what my mother wanted for me." He stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to move away. "She didn't. My mother wanted me to find someone untouched by the hardness of the world. But I'm beginning to think that's not strength. That's just inexperience. And I'm beginning to think that what she really wanted was for me to find someone who could stand beside me through the hard times. Someone who wouldn't break when the winds came." Marlena's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. He suspected she had forgotten how. "I'm not what you planned for," she whispered. "No," he agreed. "You're what I needed." When he kissed her, she tasted like dust and survival, and something achingly sweet beneath it all. She kissed him back, like a woman who had forgotten she could want something just for herself. They didn't rush. There was no need. That night, and every night after, Cole discovered that passion could bloom. Between two wounded people, that tenderness could coexist with strength, and that the purity he had once valued so highly was nothing compared to the depth of a soul that had been through fire and emerged unbroken. 3 weeks later, Cole rode into town and ended his engagement to Lily. It was uncomfortable and sad, but the preacher's daughter seemed more relieved than heartbroken. Perhaps she had sensed what Cole hadn't wanted to admit, that he had been choosing her for all the wrong reasons. Marlena stayed. Together they sent word to her allies in San Francisco, and within 2 months, the legal battles were resolved. Her late husband's business partners, faced with evidence of their criminal intimidation, backed down entirely. The mining operation was sold, the profits secured, and Marlena Cross was finally truly free. But she didn't leave. "I thought you wanted San Francisco," Cole said the day the final papers arrived. "Independence. Your own life. Marlena looked around the ranch, at the cattle grazing in the morning mist, at the house that had begun to feel like home, at the man who had seen her bloodied and barefoot and fighting for her life and loved her anyway. I wanted safety, she said. I wanted to stop running. I wanted someone who saw me, all of me, and didn't look away. She took his hand, her calloused fingers intertwining with his. I found that here, with you. They were married in autumn, as Cole had originally planned. But the bride who walked toward him under a golden sky was no blushing innocent. She was a warrior, a survivor, a woman who had chosen him not out of naivety but out of knowledge. She knew exactly what she was getting into, and she chose it anyway. Years later, when their children asked how they met, Marlena would smile and tell them about a brave cowboy who saved her from bandits. But Cole would shake his head and set the record straight. Your mother was saving herself, he would say, pride warming his voice. I just happened to be there for the ending, and she's been saving me ever since.